Innovation and Employment Committee for the West Yorkshire Combined Authorities. Great to see everybody. Great to see everybody here. I'm going to start off by turning to the formal items at the top of the agenda, and could we have apologies for absence, please, James?
Yeah, we've had apologies from Councillor Joe Hepworth, Councillor Peter Culhane. We've had apologies from Shirley Congdon, Milton Brown, Carl Oxford, Natasha Babbitt Evans, Colin Booth, and Philip Day.
Great, thank you. There are no decisions being made by the committee today in terms of the decision-making schedule, but I will ask if anybody has any interest that they want to declare at the start of the meeting or bring up during the meeting. I don't see anybody. There's no confidential items on this agenda for the meeting Anorak, because this is the first meeting. There's no minutes of the last meeting to approve or pick over. So we'll move on to just a quick, like I say, quick welcome for myself. We're on to the first meeting of this committee, and thanks to everybody who's been involved in the previous committee and worked with us to get to this point where we've brought together the Economy and Skills Committee. I think we all felt, in terms of the work of the Combined Authority and the excellent representation we have around the table, having the business and the skills together to talk about our work in one place was a really positive step forward, and one where we could look at how we can work collaboratively across West Yorkshire, across these agendas moving forwards. There's a couple of things that have happened since we last met. There was a Rachel Reeves' budget on the 30th of October, which we've all seen the fiscal measures in that, particularly for ourselves in West Yorkshire. We will have a single integrated settlement from 2026. The work we've done on the local growth plans is been emphasised in the government's work, and there's a recommitment to the investment zone and the continuation of the Shared Prosperity Fund until we get on to our single integrated settlement. We've also had the Employment Rights Bill of 2024 published, something that was a key manifesto commitment for the last general election. We've had a series of announcements around things like reform to apprenticeships, new growth and skills levy. We had the Chancellor's Mansion House speech last night, which particularly covered reform of local government pensions, as well as reform of the financial sector, which we know in all 5 West Yorkshire councils is a big employer of our residents. So some moves forward there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Sarah to come in on some other items, please.
I think it's Michelle first.
Michelle, sorry.
So we wanted to give an update on decisions that have been taken by the Combined Authority since the joint committee meeting that took place. So firstly, so a number of decisions. So the Combined Authority approved a change request to the Skills Bootcamp programme. Now, you discussed that at the last meeting and endorsed an application to the Department for Education for about £7 million kind of short courses to help people retrain in some of the most in-demand skill areas. So the next step in that is the approval from the formal approval from the Combined Authority Board to approve a change request to the programme, which is effectively that additional funding. To provide advance acceptance, I guess, in anticipation of receiving that £6.7 million of additional funding, and extended the programme delivery frameworks, the programme delivery timeframes accordingly as well. So they very much agreed with your endorsement, so I wanted to provide you with that update. We will continue to review the adult skills procurement strategy over this winter. And are holding workshops with other combined authorities and with Department for Education around best practice and adult skills procurement. So there has been a delay to the commissioning of the Adult Skills Fund, which you'll be aware of, but it is absolutely regrettable. But over £60 million, which is 90% of the Adult Skills Fund, has been successfully commissioned and is available to support residents of West Yorkshire right now. And then finally, you talked last time about a system review of employment and skills, and the first phase of that work is complete, and there is a paper included in your pack to provide you with a full update of that. And at the Combined Authority meeting on the 31st of October, 2 decisions were taken. One of those, the Combined Authority Board endorsed the recommendations that were set out in that final summary report, which you've got in your pack. And the Combined Authority Board delegated approval of an implementation plan to the Chief Executive of the Combined Authority in consultation with Councillor Lewis as Chair of this committee. And plans and delivery are now underway for phase 2 of this operating model for this employment and skills system, focusing very much on implementation, which is what really matters. How actually is this going to work in practice? With progress taking place over the next few months. Related to that, a review of the business system is progressing, and we expect to be able to bring a discussion paper to the next meeting. Before that, in the September Combined Authority Board, members provided in principle approval for retaining Employment West Yorkshire. For members of this committee that are less familiar with that, this is the primary delivery model for supporting people into work and training and to progress in work. And the primary delivery model for addressing economic inactivity, which is one of our biggest challenges here in West Yorkshire, supporting residents into work. So the Combined Authority Board provided in principle approval for retaining that kind of flagship service, as well as continuing to support the Startup Manager resource for Enterprise West Yorkshire. And I'll hand over to Sarah for the additional comments update.
Thank you. So we tried to be a flag out to a bit of a shout out to universities in the region. The Knowledge Exchange Framework results came out recently. And this provides data on the different ways that universities collaborate with external partners, whether it's businesses or community groups, or just for the benefit of economy and society. So across working for business, across IP and commercialisation, across CPD and graduate startups, all of our universities perform really strongly, and that's a really great asset for the region in terms of driving forward some of the transformation that we need to see in West Yorkshire. And on the university front, a happy birthday to Nexus, Martin, who are 5 years old this year. So yeah, congratulations. Another great asset for the region in terms of helping to drive some of our agenda moving forwards. Thank you.
Thank you. So quite a lot there from me, Michelle and Sarah. So before we move on to the agenda, I'll ask if anybody's got any comments or questions on anything that we raised. I take it that's not the case, so we'll move on to the item 4 on the agenda, which is the Economy Committee membership, please, Felix. Sarah.
Thank you. So as this is the first meeting of the Economy Committee, we want to just set out a bit of a recap of what the purpose of the Joint Committee is now, and the kind of role and the remit that it's going to cover. It's very much a for information paper, but just to kind of flag a few things. There's a real need for this committee to focus on guiding policy development, commissioning where there are gaps and need in demand, and inputting very clearly into delivery and co-delivery of kind of programmes and new initiatives. The local growth plan is going to be the key strategic driver for this committee, and we've kind of set out 5 key priorities within that where we think this committee has a really important role going forwards. The first is around strengthening that forward-looking, flexible and sustainable education and training system, supporting people through a system that works for all, ensuring all businesses can access the support they need, wherever that might be from, turbocharging growth in priority sectors, and then addressing the long tail of unproductive businesses and the everyday economy in West Yorkshire. And across all these agendas, we'll really start to have an inroad into the objectives across the local growth plan. It is a new committee, and as Councillor Lewis said, there's a real opportunity to link the skills, the business, the innovation agendas, and really kind of have those joined up conversations that we need to have going forwards. So I'll leave it there unless anybody's got any questions or comments.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a much easier name, the Economy Committee, than the BEIC, which I can never remember which order they're in. So this is much easier. So and I suppose it is interesting, and obviously the two areas, the business economy, innovation and employment and skills, of course, really work and dovetail together. And in Calderdale, I'm in my portfolio that I have both of those areas, and it is really good to see them sort of working together. And I suppose it's like how the question is, how do we best how do we take best advantage of the join up of the two agendas? So I suppose it'd be interesting to know sort of a bit more about the forward plan that allows for a focus on connection rather than discrete elements of work, so we can see really how that's all joined up, and we're not working in silos, because I think that's the beauty, isn't it, to try and bring stuff together so it's not all separated out, and that would be good to make sure that happens. Obviously, the local growth plan is key to the overall focus of the agenda for this committee. It's not on the agenda. I recognise the difficulty of that sort of timescales around that. In you've got submitting a draft to government and a formal sign off from the combined authority. I guess it would be helpful to bring a more detailed update to a future meeting, maybe, or if there could be like an informal workshop of the committee that looks at how the local growth plan will shape future activity and approaches. So and the employment and skills system review is a really good piece of work. It sets out really clearly what works and at what level, reflecting principles of subsidiarity. And I know that officers are currently inputting into an implementation plan, which obviously I suppose will be more detailed. I presume that's going to be more detailed, the work on that. That's great. In terms of business support review, I think that needs more work as well, possibly quite significantly. And I know that that officers are working on that after consultancy support got it so far. I suppose there's a concern that decisions are being made regarding parts of the system in advance of the work being done, and obviously, so that can be useful. For example, the business startup extension, but maybe is there logic regarding which are the critical areas, elements of infrastructure that need to be retained in order to transition to the new focus, is the question, really. That's it from me.
Thanks, Sarah. So, Sarah or Felix?
Happy to pick it up.
Felix, please. Martin.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I guess looking at what we're trying to do here, what underpins a lot of this, I think, is innovation. So thinking differently and starting to say, okay, we've always done it that way, let's look at it in a more effective way. Let's look at different ways of delivering things and supporting businesses. So I just wonder whether there should be something more explicit about innovation underpinning our approach and what we're about. So that was my first comment. The second comment is, again, Councillor Courtney, I agree totally, it makes sense to bring the committee together. However, the remit of this committee now is extremely broad, and we've got fewer representatives on this group. So my question really is about, does that mean we have an ability to use subgroups or to actually get more people involved in particular areas, particularly when we want to do a deeper dive and get more input and more thoughts? So that was really just a question.
Thank you, Martin. Would anybody else like to come in? Okay, so Felix, please.
Okay, on the first point about the business review, the team, we've got an officer group that is working on this, and I think they met even last week, and there's another meeting next week. So the work is not complete, but we need to complete that. We need to reach agreement this side of Christmas, because budgets are being set. And exactly to the point you made, Councillor Courtney, we do not want to be forced to be making too many decisions when we can't see the full model and have a better sense of what it will take to actually fund it all. We had to go ahead to provide clarity and certainty for the business startup. Bit of it, because that was facing a particular cliff edge, which was raised, was a fair point, and we did our best to be able to close that off to give certainty. But we're not doing anything else on any other part of our business support infrastructure until the review has concluded. which we expect, as I said, to happen this side of Christmas, and we'll come back and we'll take you through the usual routes. On the other points, innovation, I completely get it, and as you can see from the draft look up with plan has come round, and hopefully everybody can see how much we've amplified the importance of innovation when it comes to growing productivity and increasing prosperity and all that. The point you make, Martin, about whether we could have subgroups, I suppose that's really for the chair and for members to decide. But what we've written into the terms and what Sarah went through is that this committee can commission more work, more deep dives. How we frame that commission is up to the committee working with the chair to agree. So it could be that if there's a particular issue that's come up, the committee could agree or could decide that actually we need to spend a bit of time and effort going into this, and we'll nominate some members from here to oversee that piece of work and to report back. And as in agreement with the chair, I'm sure we can definitely make that work. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that.
Thank you, Felix. Martin, please.
Sorry. Well, I'm not sure from that, Felix, is who's making the decisions? Will the decisions on the business support review and the recommendations, will they come to this board to be discussed? Because as it was described, it seems to be an internal, an offers-only group, where there's a huge amount of expertise just sat around this table in business support, and an awful lot of years' worth of knowledge.
Sarah, please.
So you're absolutely right. So we've started off with not an internal, it's a local authority, combined authority, because there are some immediate issues that we need to address and resolve. But we're really mindful that this isn't a CALE issue, this is an ecosystem issue. We need to address it with partners like yourselves, like the universities, about what that model needs to look like. But there's just a few conversations that need to take place, and then we are absolutely committed to having the conversations with you all and with this committee as well, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, I suppose on that sort of theme, really. Given that the meetings are like effectively there's 3 meetings a year, and so I suppose it is about if decisions need to be made, presumably they're not going to be made necessarily at this committee. So it's like what role does this committee have? Is it more of an advisory and information sort of giving rather than decision making? Because presumably, some decisions are going to be need to make. We're not going to be fleet of foot enough for decisions because we're not meeting frequently enough. And I suppose it's that thing, isn't it? It is a massive area of work, and it was 8 meetings a year if you take the 2 committees, going down to 3 meetings a year, and a reduction of sort of some of the partners. I mean, obviously some of the people around the table were the same in both committees, and for those people, I'm sure it's a relief to have fewer meetings. But and there is a sort of complete sense of consolidating, absolutely. And all of our time is we're all really busy, but. I suppose it's just about making sure that we don't lose some of those voices that we had previously, and just making sure that there is a place for some of the voices that are really valuable, because otherwise we can just talk to each other ad nauseum, and we don't really get some of the outside information, intel, perspective. So I suppose I'm not really even, I'm not expecting an answer about that particularly, but I just feel like we don't want to lose that.
Thank you. I think that's looking about how we, the work of the main combined authority, how we're bringing sort of the really key elements that this committee could really support and advise on, are coming here in a timely fashion, like you say, Sarah, making sure we sort of continue to have that strong membership around the table when those items do come forward. And I think that's sort of the one of the critical paths. Like Martin said, when we start getting onto issues around things like innovation, giving issues here that proper review and focus, I think, is really positive. We're never going to get that at the combined authority meeting, where we've got the work of all the committees, the mayor and everybody coming forward on a Thursday morning. I think that's the opportunity we've got here. Okay, I don't see anybody else wanting to come in on this item. So the recommendation is we note the membership and governance, and I think we've given a good airing about where we go next. So, shall we move on to item 5, please? I think Michelle's going to introduce this item, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So, sorry. So you've got some quite detailed papers in your pack around the West Yorkshire Promise and technical education. These link to really key commitments that the Mayor made in her manifesto for re-election. So the whole manifesto was framed under this language of a region of learning and creativity. And key to that kind of ambition and theme were two main areas. One of those being the West Yorkshire Promise, which is described as a kind of recognition and accreditation for transferable skills, sometimes called softer skills, that are really important for social mobility and for employability. And looking at some of the great work already in existence in the region to help people not only to develop those skills, but to recognise in themselves that they have them, and to talk about those. So you can see in the paper the proposed approach to that, and also to technical pathways. So what you've got set out in the paper, quite a lot of evidence about the decline really in take-up of technical education. So we're talking primarily here about qualifications like apprenticeships, and we've seen some of the numbers reducing. So there's quite a lot of information in the paper about some of the factors that contribute to that and some of the challenges that we experience, but also the real importance of technical education to our economy, and to the sectors that are highlighted as having the greatest economic potential in our local growth plan. So there's an approach. So this is coming here at very early stages, reflecting the conversation we've just been having about the importance of development work coming here at a really early stage in order to inform development, and sets out the ambition really to set an all-age framework which supports learners to navigate, learners and also people are not currently learners, to enter and navigate the system, leading to employment, high quality employment here in the West Yorkshire economy. And that really needs to encompass the fact that people enter the system at really different points, and one of the really key themes of the skills system review that we've just been talking about is recognising that that there are different levels that are most effective for engaging people in the system, and so we need to recognise in the design of a system that works for West Yorkshire that that's the case. You know, that there are people for whom the most effective route to engagement is at the most local level possible, but there are also people who are looking to progress and retrain, who are very much looking at that kind of wider functional economic geography. So we need a system that recognises that and that people enter at different levels, and to provide inspiration to young people, to career changers, but also to those key influencers in their lives, whether that's teachers or parents, about the great opportunities that technical education can bring them, and really showcasing some of those. So the primary aim really, as ever, is about simplification of the offer, making clear links between growth and emerging sectors and those skills gaps that our intelligence and data tells us we have. It is a big ambition, and that's why we wanted to bring this here at a really early stage, to get your thoughts about employability skills and about technical skills, which are both areas that employers clearly tell us through the LSIP, but also through all of our labour market intelligence work, are really key to employment opportunities.
Thank you, Michelle, for introducing the item. And who would like to go first, please? Sue, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. And I just wanted to add a mention for the role of the university sector in this space, because obviously a lot of our education is also quite vocational and technical. And I'm pleased to say that Professor Tim Thornton from the University of Huddersfield is involved in one of the roundtables, I think, developing some of this work. So we're keen to contribute in those kind of ways. I just wanted to give a plug for the opening of the Daphne Steele building at the university's Health Innovation Campus. Official opening was earlier this week, which is full of very state-of-the-art technical education for nurses, paramedics, and everything in between. So we're really proud of our contribution in that way. So it's not really a question, it's just
Thank you, Sue. Martin, please.
On our work, Michelle, that we've been doing with the LSIP, something that's very rarely mentioned by employers are T-levels. And we need to do some explaining. I think it's mostly down to not really knowing what they are, and I think there's a big piece of work to make people aware of what they are, how they can assist their businesses, but it's not coming up, unfortunately.
Thank you. Leland Farrer, please.
Yeah, I was just looking at the table of the system, and I've noticed that National's not in there. I thought it'd be worth highlighting that there are things that are happening. So we've got the Talent and Skills Connect platform where we're developing a community nationally. And there's also the No Limits platform as well, which is trying to create access to pathways into innovative jobs. So it's worth probably building some of that into.
Thank you. Farrer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. That's sort of really detailed paper. But just going back to the T-levels, there is we are looking at that in the West Yorkshire Manufacturing Advisory Board, and Hannah at UTC has offered to host that, and she's going to show us how that's sort of done. So if anybody's interested, sort of come out, reach out to me, and I think there'll be some opportunities to find out a little bit more. But you're absolutely right that it does need to be a bit more information on those. The other point regarding the sort of promise, the certification, is that a sort of graded thing? I know you sort of talked about different entry points, and how does that just sort of work?
Michelle, please.
So I'll take that point. So I think the others were kind of well, plugs in Sue's case, but also really helpful. My response to all of those is that they are really, really helpful and timely, and that's exactly why I brought this here. So we will absolutely take those points on board and build them in. And we'll be keen to support on any of the work around sort of team level awareness and understanding for employers. So please get in touch with us on that. In terms of the West Yorkshire Promise in particular, we're very much at scoping stage actually. So we'd be really keen to take views of this book. So we've been spending, Josh has actually done a lot of this work. It's looking at me from across the table, but we've been spending a lot of time looking at good practice that's already out there. And actually there's a real mix of stuff that is kind of badged and staged and in different kind of models. And so we're really keen to take the view of yourselves around what would best add value. So we're not at that design stage yet. We're very much taking this here for your view at an early stage.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think thoroughly endorse the direction of policy development regarding the technical education pathways in the West Yorkshire Promise, and I think the work on both of those obviously is in its embryonic stages. This is why it's here. We support the ambition in Calderdale to simplify and unify the current system offer, and the local offer delivered through an all-age framework is a positive addition to the landscape. And it will certainly for us, it will help address some of our issues around low employment rates for young people who are especially aged 18 to 24. It must complement the current employability and skills offered, and also that employers really endorse it, and that's an important sort of tie-in. I think the model of technical pathways really needs to mirror the local offer for residents as well. So because otherwise it doesn't simplify, does it? If it doesn't mirror the same thing. So the employment and skills landscape obviously is quite complex, and the skills system review work is really critical. And I think it'd be really good if the new approach is fully embedded in the work, health and skills strategy that's currently under development, because like we said, all of these things are really sort of tied in together. I mean, yesterday I was here for the again, I'm not going to get the words in the right order, but the Regeneration, Place and Housing Committee, and we were talking in that because obviously various things came up around housing, whether it's retrofitting or new houses, and the skills in order to be able to having the skills to deliver on having people with the skills to deliver housing, to deliver retrofitting, all of those things, they're so tied in. So as well as these two committees having been, joined in order to dovetail all of that work, must work with the other committees as well to make sure that they all work together. I think to date the opportunity for input into both of these areas has been limited, with a focus on working with colleges and businesses. But we are aware of the discussions in Directorate of Travel, and in Calderdale officers will and politicians will continue to assist with developing the policy and the offer. Really happy to sort of do whatever we can to input in a positive way.
Thanks, Sarah. Just to throw a bit of a question back to you, just in terms of the comment you made in there around making sure sort of a technical training offer and a local offer fit in together. Do you think that's something that doesn't happen at the moment?
I don't know. So I think it's with because the technical pathways it's all quite new, isn't it? So I think it's just making sure that they do when they come in, when we're working through with them.
Okay. All right.
Great, thank you. Imran, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that partly covers it. So whilst I agree with the premise, and I think it's a good way forward, for me, it's how it builds on existing practice and what we're already doing, especially at a local level. So I'm here obviously representing Bradford, so I want to know how this ties in with our local colleges and the work that we do through the local council.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Yeah, one of my questions, I guess, was around, are there other combined authorities trying to do something similar? And are we aware of what they're doing? And again, can we combine and learn from them and share best practice? The premise of this, I think, is great. I think putting it in practice is probably a real challenge. But the intent behind it, I think is fantastic. But I'm just thinking about, again, is there something we can do more collectively to actually accelerate the process of this?
Thank you.
No, I'm happy to.
I'll start. I'll start. I think we take the points completely, and we'll make sure things dovetail. It's key though to make the point, and I completely hear you about the local provision and making sure we don't run across anything. That's absolutely not the intent. The intention here is to simplify for learners, for parents, for employers, so they'll be completely against the norm. It's important though that we recognize that some of this is not a local thing. People travel across boundaries and they just want to access the best provision, and where they live is just a matter of accident, where their parents have pitched off or whatever. And depending on the level we are dealing with, people travel more and more. So at a much lower level of provision, people are probably very local. But people cross boundaries all the time, as it's just life. And it's our role as a combined authority, given where we are able to look across the whole picture to ensure that provision works. It's clear, it's simple, it's navigable, it's accessible, all of that. And we're not complicating things unduly. The fact is that currently everybody tells us it's too difficult to navigate. It's the language, everything, and so what we're trying to do here is to simplify that. So I'm fully expecting that we'll get to the point where it just makes sense, it works, whatever level. The question Martin asked about whether other local authority or combined authority areas are doing this. I suppose the most famous example we've got is the MBAC in Greater Manchester. They went a particular route, and I'll let colleagues who are more technically astute than I am to explain if you want to, but they did it in a particular way. They got great branding, and so it caught their attention. But the actual substance of what they're trying to do is quite a technical, simple thing that they're trying to do there. That is the most famous example. What we're trying to do, we're not copying the MBAC. We're developing a system or a model where people can either come in and go around a whole loop and pick up what they need to be able to build on their career, or jump in and jump off, and it just makes sense. It makes sense for the learner, makes sense for whoever is paying for it, makes sense for parents, makes sense for employers. And we're only at the beginning of this, at the foothills. So we'll see where we get to. But we need to design something that works for our economy. Our economy is quite diverse. We've got real strengths in the manufacturing, engineering, technical area, and our employers are demanding that. And we need to make sure our education and training system works for that, but also works for learners so they can achieve their full potential.
Thank you. Imran, please.
So thank you for that. I agree absolutely. I mean, it's a much wider offer that we need to have. 70% of our students at Bradford University are local as well. So, what I don't want to do is have something done to us. It's got to be in partnership. So I just want to make sure that we have input into that, as opposed to just, well, here you are, this is something that we've decided in Wellington House in Leeds, and the rest of you, just fit in. So that's what I'm keen to ensure, that we have that input into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's coming here, and yeah, absolutely. The design is about making sure that we recognise that those routes to engagement are different for different people, and for some people they are the most effective at the most local level possible. So yeah, absolutely, it's about bringing together local offers rather than kind of replicating them. That's really, really important, isn't it? There was also a point about command authorities. Yeah, there are some really good examples. I do want to reassure you about how closely we work together across command authority areas. That isn't always very visible, but incredibly closely. We are it's in all of our everyone. We're all very keen to learn from one another, and we've had tremendous support and advice actually from other command authority areas, and we are doing the same as new areas come on stream.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a really important point, especially, say, for example, if you go to the outer edges of the combined authority, especially sort of like Todmorden in Calderdale, which is on the borders virtually with Greater Manchester, and people so kids will go to Rochdale College, which is excellent. It's a really good college. There are excellent colleges within the combined authority, West Yorkshire combined authority region, of course. But it's quicker. That's going to be. But my point about people moving across borders, and that is really important. It is really important, and again, and that's how it does. Working with the transport committee, and making sure that actually the transport works across the region and across the borders into other combined authority regions. So it is about really joining up all of those things: health, skills, economy, equalities. Everything is just all has to work together, doesn't it?
I've got Graham, and then I'll bring you in, Farah, please.
Chair, thank you. I was just looking at one of these graphs, and on level 2, we're fairly consistent across the piece, and we're just a few percent below the national average. But level 3, it's all over the place. Do we understand why that is? Or are we thinking, or don't we understand it? We're going to look into why. But as I said, that level 2 seems fairly consistent, but level 3 is all over the place, and that's probably the most important level for some of the high-skilled jobs that we're looking for.
Then
You're looking at the graph on 29.
Yeah.
Yes.
Page 29. So I mean, we can probably look into that in more detail for you. But yeah, there is a really mixed picture at level 3, and one of the impacts of that is that is our future adult learners, and actually a lot of those individuals that don't get their level 3 in school then end up quite successfully getting their level 3 as an adult, but effectively it's taking a couple of chances through. There are very key, the evidence tells us that there are very key transition points in education where people are falling off, so this is about largely about those key points in your educational journey where people are maybe not making the best choice for them, or maybe not getting the support that they need. So there are very, very key points, particularly for our most disadvantaged learners, where the evidence tells us they're falling out of the system. So you can pinpoint it quite accurately, can't you, as you've done, as to where we can see that difference.
thank you. Farah, please.
Yeah, just something, the semantics of the use of the soft skills. I think you're in a meeting where somebody once said we ought to call them power skills. And we just thought that was lovely, really, and just leave that with you, you know, maybe change the language around that.
Soft power.
So, yeah.
Great. Felix, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just very quickly to pick a couple of points up, Councillor Khan. The the skill system review that was referred to in one of the earlier papers sets out a framework for how we work together at various levels, and comments across the table and other forums confirmed how well that's gone down. People understand it. It's the first time we've actually worked to get a settlement for how we engage with each other and how we work. The arrangements that model has brought about is what we're following to do this work. So nobody's doing anything to anybody. We're working together as a partnership initially of 6, but also for the partners around the table in this sector to make sure we do this. We're not going to impose any model or any framework on anyone. We recognize together that there's a challenge here, and we're working together to fix that. The level 3 point, Michelle made a really good point. I think the careers blueprint is coming, and in there you'll see we've made a point about transitions. The transition from one stage to another is really crucial, and so it's no surprise. Of course, with education, there's a pyramid. The fall off between level 2 and level 3 is just too pronounced, and one of the main reasons for that is just the advice, the support, the engagement people have when they are transitioning from one stage of education to another. And so the work we're doing on the careers blueprint is drawing attention to that, and it's positioning us to think through what interventions we need to put in place to ease that and to enable people move on more smoothly.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, I was we had a looked after children takeover day this morning, so where we work with young people who we're corporate parents for in our system, and you just sort of saying that just reminded me of something that I meant to say about people who are care experienced often don't make education until a bit later on, because at the point where they are sort of leaving school is the point where they're possibly also leaving care, and where things are really, really tricky for them, really difficult, and actually making sure that we've got that sort of the support system for people who are care experienced, and really understanding that their journey might be a bit later, and it doesn't mean that they're not able to go as far, but they don't necessarily have that familial support, and not everyone who's not in care has familial support, of course, but they definitely don't have that familial support to help guide them through that sort of process. And at the point where other people might be thinking about A-levels and or sort of college courses, they might just be thinking about how to pay their rent, or what that means to pay council tax. So I think anything that can be built into the system to help care experienced people, I think would be good for us as corporate parents across the board.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think one of the features of the system needs to be that that people don't all hit the same point at the same age on stage, and therefore we need to build a system that makes it far easier and recognises that it is a feature of people's lives that they need that support at different stages, and we currently have a system that probably is less flexible around that, less targeted. So I think that's a really powerful point that you make.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on this item? Don't see anybody else with their hands up. I think there's plenty for you to be getting on with there, Michelle and Josh, from what we've been talking about. I don't think it's a...
That's just what we needed.
Yes, yeah, I think it is that really important point around, we'll have all seen it in the different points we've dealt with the skills system, and for those of us who are, and for those of us who are counsellors, we'll go back and chat to kids in the area we represent, and things that we talk about a lot in the council will mean little or nothing to the kids. I think it's young people. I think it's having that real sort of accessibility at the wherever we try and take people through options and things like that, is having that real sort of open accessibility at the beginning is a really important part of that. Sarah?
Sorry, I know that
I've got you going again.
I know you banged the gavel saying going, gone, and that we'd all finished. But just on that point, really, and I think it's about, and again, it's like especially whether it's with children who are in the, you know, who've got additional needs and have sort of come through the SEND system, or you know, whatever sort of, especially, but children who have, young people who have any sort of barrier really. So our local career services know our children really, really well, you know, so especially sort of like, you know, the children who are either NEET or at risk of being NEET. And so it's just sort of like another shout out really, that if we are doing any work or commissioning services that are sort of around careers or any of that sort of stuff, then whether it's for young people or for older learners, just to, you know, see if we can incorporate the organisations that are already there rather than sort of coming in. This is might be a little bit pillar 3-ish perspective here, but you know, just making sure that we're using as much local knowledge as we can in from that perspective. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Just check again if nobody else wants to come in on this. No, great. So the recommendation is we give discussion and feedback, which we have done on item 5. So we're moving on to item 6. I think you're going to introduce this, please, Louise.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm going to give quite a brief update on the progress of the Charter, and then with your permission I'll pass over to Barney to give a bit more background context. So the Charter pilot began in November 23, and employer engagement at the moment is undertaken by a commission supplier. To date, 317 employers have registered, and 196 of those are certified members of the Charter now. The ambition that's outlined in the local growth plan is to scale the Charter to reach 10,000 organisations over the next 5 years. So it's an ambitious plan, and we're working on an action plan with the steering group to achieve this. So Barney, as the Vice Chair of the Charter Steering Group, could you provide a bit more context? And then we'd like to open it out to a discussion about the next steps for scaling the Charter.
Yeah, I'll be very, very brief. So, I mean, we started work on this. It was one of the Mayor's initial pledges in the first election. And there are a lot of these charters around the country. And we looked at them and we thought, well, fine. But, and I'm from the FSP, so I'm thinking, well, what does this mean for small businesses? And in other areas, my colleagues have said, yeah, we have one, but, you know. And so ours is different. And I think it's really important to stress that the one we have in West Yorkshire is different. I would say it's better. It's definitely more relevant for smaller businesses. And what we've tried to avoid is just having a charter that is a tick box, and it's sort of like a sort of a mark in time of where we were at that point. This is actually about trying to get people in and trying to improve the way they operate and to be better employers, because we work on the basis that people want to be good employers. And the more we can help them, that's brilliant. And so we don't just want people to sign up and say, well, I've got the nice badge, I can put something on my website. We want people to say, actually, I'm going to, as a result of this, continue improving. I'm going to support other employers to help with their journey as well. And there's a lot of peer groups around that. And I think that's what makes ours different. And that's why ours is so important. And we've got to say, the main aim is we want West Yorkshire to be the best place to work. And this has got to be part of it. And it's not just a tick box. It's actually about supporting business owners who want to be as good as they can be to do that. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Barney. Would anybody like to come in on this item, please? Martin, please.
So 317 businesses have signed up. What's the breakdown of those businesses in terms of the size and the sector? And you were mentioning that this is specifically aimed at small businesses. Is that true? Or is this businesses across the board? And how do you particularly get the larger businesses to sign up for this? Sorry, it's multiple questions, I apologise.
I'm just going to direct you to, in Appendix 1, there is a bit of a breakdown of the sectors, districts, size of organisations, and the organisation type as well. So that's data probably a month or so old, but that does give you a bit of a breakdown of where we're at the moment with those 317. I'll let Barney answer the next section.
Well, it's aimed at businesses, of which 99% aren't large businesses. So if it's not relevant to that 99%, then it's not going to work. Although I haven't said that, 75% probably don't are sole traders, freelancers. But it's got to be there for everyone. How we're targeting bigger businesses, well, that's some of the work that Greenborough are doing, who are the consultant working on it. And that, in a way, personally, I'm less worried about them because I think they can be found quite easy, and you could actually make a list of them quite quickly because there aren't there's hundreds, not thousands. It's actually how we get to all businesses, and ultimately how we make it. For me, it's about social norming. It's how about actually, if you're a business in West Yorkshire, why wouldn't you sign up?
Thank you. Farah, please.
Do you think the new Employment Act will cover off some of this stuff in the Fair Work Charter? Potentially.
It's sort of, it's a moving picture, isn't it? And there was in Appendix 2, there was a bit of an overview of how that we expect it to sort of dovetail with what we're doing in the region. I think because a lot of the statutory requirements are coming in 2026, the Fair Work Charter gives an opportunity to introduce businesses and organisations who maybe are further away from thinking in that way, to sort of prepare them as a softly approach to sort of meet the requirements that they will need by the time that employment bill comes in.
Can I quickly add to that? This charter is about being better than okay. There's the law there to deal with bad employers. We're not interested in them, to be honest. I mean, I think we are further, but the law is there to deal with them. We're about those who are good and want to be better. And so these things are important, but we're actually doing better than that in this.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, I think sort of following on from that then as well. So it's about how we engage with those. Obviously, it's quite ambitious, 10,000, but that's good. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to be aspirational, of course. So the focus of the Fair Work Charter and supporting an inclusive economy is good. Obviously, there is some way to go to operationalise that at the sort of scale that's been set out. But I think it's got to be taken forward in alignment with the thinking around the approach to business support, because I think that can supporting businesses to grow and to grow through being good businesses, and good employers is a really positive way. So I think that integrated approach again is really vital to achieving positive, inclusive economy outcomes. So it's like it will actually, because we want employers to be good employers, we want businesses to be, good businesses from that perspective. That will have a positive effect on the inclusive economy outcomes, and will be an efficient use of resources. I guess this would be distinct from the pilot, which is a sort of a standalone offer. So I think having it integrated with the business, with that business support, is really important. I think in context of constrained revenue resources, though, perhaps the financial implications need to be a bit clearer for us. Would be good.
Thank you. Sue, please.
Thank you. I just wondered, in terms of the scaling question, whether there's any intention to use the combined authority and local authority supply chain to accelerate this at any point. There's an expectation that anyone who is in receipt of combined authority funds is expected. I know it's a different approach to the voluntary approach that we've got here, but it's possibly a way of accelerating that would work.
So we've discussed this, and the steering group has discussed this. I think there's a challenge between the ethos of the charter and then stipulating that X, Y, and Z needs to happen. But I think that's a conversation we need to carry on having as we think about the evolution, actually. And there are different views, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Barney, would you like to?
I'm saying nothing.
Well, I mean, from a small business point of view, I would be against this because I just think it becomes more bureaucracy for small businesses. It actually restricts them into the supply chain where it's already difficult. And actually, if you look at what we've got in the Fair Work Charter, it's so easy to join that actually joining in itself is almost meaningless for that point of view. What it's about is getting people in and helping them improve rather than actually working. It'd be nice to be a shortcut for commissioners, but I think they've probably got to do a bit more work.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same as Barney. I think it's difficult enough for small businesses to deal with the public sector procurement processes as it is without adding further complexity to that and giving them another reason not to bid.
Thank you.
I'd just come back because I was thinking of the larger organisations more than the smaller ones, to be honest. The anchor institutions, some of us around this table, obviously.
Okay. Does anybody else want to come in on this item? I can't see anybody else, so shall we note the recommendations and move on to item 7, which I think James is leading on, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this update provides committee members with the latest position in relation to employment support, including work and health. Economic inactivity rates are rising nationally, which in West Yorkshire equates to 350,000 people, and around 80,000 of those are inactive due to long-term sickness. Persistent unemployment for key groups threatens long-term prosperity for certain demographics and also for the growth ambitions within the local growth plan. A Getting Britain Working white paper is expected at the end of November, and this will set out expectations for work, health and skills trailblazers and detail the ask for the mayoral combined authorities to develop a work, health and skills plan. Cater Research, who are a Sheffield-based company who are involved in the lauded Pathways to Work Commission, has been appointed to lead a co-produced work, health and skills plan for West Yorkshire by the end of January 25. The appended interim report from CARDA shares outcomes from the initial consultations around barriers to engagement, job design and the need for employer support for people with health conditions and disabilities. All of this indicates that the plan must seek to address the underlying causes as well as the effects of these circumstances. And this brings into focus the need to work preventatively with partners, both inside and outside of the employment support ecosystem, and create the circumstances in which people with lived experience of economic inactivity due to ill health can follow their aspirations and contribute to their local community. As such, the plan will inform future commissioning of employment support programmes with a focus on economic inactivity that improves outcomes for individuals with work and health barriers. I'll pass back to the Chair and welcome comments.
Thanks, James. Who'd like to go first, please? Martin, please.
Recent changes to the national insurance rate for employers and the forthcoming changes to employment law is having an effect on businesses. And I'm hoping I'm wrong, but what they currently say is that they are less likely to employ people from these backgrounds, or people that have been off work or have been struggling or have spent any time unemployed because of the changes to the legislation. And there are less people saying that they are looking at employing in the near future as well. And I just think we need to take that in context, or do what we can to make it easier to support this work for employers to get engaged with.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come in? Barney, please.
A couple of things. One, which, I mean, you were there at the meeting in Calderdale where this was quite an issue, but it's helping people in work, and so much of the attention is on people out of work. But actually, once people leave work, and I think what we heard there was if you're out of work for 12 months, there's only a 30% chance of re-entering the workplace, which is quite shocking. So actually, we shouldn't forget that, because we're going to have to be dealing with that later if we don't. And the other thing, which is just one of my pet things now, which I'll crowbar it in anywhere, is access to work, which is a government scheme to help support people in work. And it's brilliant in some ways because it helps the self-employed, which is quite unusual in these schemes. But the problems around claiming it, the problems around the time it takes to get it, make it really quite difficult. But it seems to me there could be a win for West Yorkshire if we supported business owners to both be aware of it and claim it for themselves and their employees. And it seems a win, because we'd be getting resources from national resources into West Yorkshire, and it wouldn't seem to be a really difficult thing. But from the conversations I have with people who have claimed it, it is an awful thing, especially, some of the process, if you're neurodiverse, the online process is really difficult. And just such a lot of ignorance around it. People just don't know that they can claim it. And then once they can, intervention would probably be a way of getting resources and money and keeping people in work in West Yorkshire.
Thank you. Do you want to come back, James, please?
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you both for your points. To your point, Martin, it's definitely a key element of the work health and skills plan to ensure that it speaks to employers, and that the needs, the experiences and the specific requirements in terms of access to support are simplified and made easier to obtain and receive that advice and that support. So that's a key focus of the plan. In terms of, and thank you for your point too, in terms of access to work, as you say, that has been raised in the consultation so far. We've had specific examples of the length of time and the difficulty in actually claiming back that money. So again, that is something that is going to feature in the plan, and making sure that the process is as simple as it possibly can be, and that it in itself doesn't become a barrier to employers who want to involve themselves in this agenda.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, thank you. From the report, the flagship Employment West Yorkshire programme, coordinated by the Combined Authority and delivered by local authorities, as a key infrastructure for devolution of employment support and delivery of interventions, with a focus on those economically inactive, including removing health-related barriers to work. In its meeting in September, the Combined Authority reaffirmed its commitment to the programme, which is great. But can officers confirm what progress has been made to implement the delegated decision to approve funding for this key infrastructure from March 2025? Because we are on the cusp of having to. Well, we don't want to have to implement redundancy processes, and we need to know sort of where you are with where that decision is. And I know that the decision is expected in December, but I've been asked to put pressure on, just so we know where we are with that. Just because we are in that position of, it's a bit knife edge from that perspective. That's my first point.
Felix, I'll deal with that.
Okay, yeah. All right. So sorry. So I know that CARD have done a great job in a short time. The approach follows the excellent work we're talking about cross combined authority of the work that's been done in Barnsley on the Pathway to Employment initiative. So it's brilliant. And we've had support from our key stakeholders and customers to participate in engagement sessions. and have co-designed workshops. Leeds and Calderdale hosted in-person sessions due to a number of engagements and partners that had been that had come on board. Significant feedback on the new model is to co-design future services, which must please, it's a plea that please can they include hyper-local delivery by local-based organisations. That would be really helpful. Oops, and I've just lost my place now in my notes by pressing the wrong button, as you do. Sorry, I'll be with you in a sec. And obviously you came along, James, to our recent inclusive economy. We had a joint inclusive economy and employment and skills partnership meeting to talk about work and health, and you got feedback from that, didn't you? Which was good. So bringing health and employment professionals together to support those in work and returning to work with health conditions really has to be the model for the future. And we're also working with the Combined Authority on the Connect to Work programme that's on the horizon, and we know that will provide further support in the future. So we just, you know, affirming that we really want to be engaged and involved throughout the process, and we welcome proposals to take this approach forward. That we're really behind it, or really, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Thank you, James, please.
Yeah, so in answer to the point around the hyperlocal aspect, so that has been a key theme in the consultation, in the co-design sessions. Those connections and that knowledge and that infrastructure at a local level, which is so vital to local people. So that's fully the intention. In terms of health and employment integration, again, that is a key focus of the plan, is to keep building on the relationships and also and employment focuses so that we proceed in a partnership manner to address work and health issues and concerns. And in terms of the Connect to Work, there are ongoing discussions that involve delivery plan and an implementation plan as a partnership. So you will be fully involved in those. And thank you for your support and endorsement. And it was good to see you at the committee meeting. Point.
Felix.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm trying to just... So, as you said, Councillor, the CA made a decision in September that Employment West Yorkshire will continue to fund it. We'll use that model to deliver as best we can wherever appropriate our employment support provision. That decision has been made. So we as officers, our job is to implement it. We don't need, unless somebody is saying they don't trust the decision that was made in this room, we don't need to go back and reassure anybody else that we are definitely going to do it, because the CA has said we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And we've said to officers, why would you want to have a conversation with anybody about redundancy when we've said there's no cliff edge? There's no cliff edge because the CA said we're going to fund this. So we're going to fund it. But people keep asking, can you give me a piece of paper, or can you give us do you trust the piece of paper a bit more than you trust the CA decision? The CA said this is going to continue, so we're going to do it. So please reassure colleagues. I would rather they would just talk to us and we don't have to do this in a public forum. But please reassure colleagues. The CA's made a decision in September. I took the paper. I sat here. I took the paper. The decision was Employment West Yorkshire coming to an end at the end of March 25. we will extend that to make sure there's no cliff edge to anybody. And that decision still stands. The one area of our work where there will be no shortage of focus, of activity, is employment support. Because as James has just said, we have 380,000 people classed as economically inactive, between 80 and 100,000 of them because of health reasons. It was the previous government's priority, it's this government's priority. And so the one area we cannot do less in is this area. So rest assured to all the committee and to colleagues out there, we're only going to do more. The one thing that I would add, Chair, every time I'm asked to talk about this is that does not mean that we will continue to do what we've been doing. We have to do what the evidence says we need to do. And the evidence says we need to focus on health-led economic inactivity, particularly those who have been out of work for a bit longer, because that's always more difficult. But also look at those who are in work but are at risk of falling out of the labor market, because as Barney said, only if you fall out for a period of time, only a small proportion ever get back in. So that is the focus. So currently, Employment West Yorkshire provides a universal support. That is going to have to change. So we focus on where the evidence is saying we should focus. And the evidence is saying focus on health-related economic inactivity. So whatever we do on the universal side, if we continue to do that, we'll have to reflect what the evidence is saying. But rest assured to the committee and to colleagues out there who might be reading the transcripts later or maybe watching, there's no more reassurance we can give beyond what the combined authorities decision was in September.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on this item, please? Imran, please.
Just to say thank you for that. That is really reassuring, and I don't think you could have put it across any stronger than, than what you have done. I get the point about the focus has got to be on health-related employment support, but there is still scope to do general, universal. I mean, I know you're saying you want to shift away from the universal. So can we not keep an element of that? Because whilst as reassuring that as that was, it looks like quite a significant shift from the way things have been done in the past. So if we could focus on the health related, but have a little bit of the universal as well.
we will do the best we can. What we need to make sure or anything that can be delivered in a different way. So absolutely take the point on board, and if there's any gap to be filled on the universal side or wider side, of course we'll do everything we can to fill that. There's a challenge that we face, and I don't want to go into too much detail because we're still waiting for detail. Even though there is more revenue, more resource for us to do this from central government because of the focus on this. The funding that we are receiving comes in quite a tight envelope. Not in terms of how much money, but in terms of the restrictions, the model we can use and all of that. So our flexibility is sometimes not where we'd like it to be, but as much as we can, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see somebody else. Sue, please. I can see somebody now.
Thank you. Just one quick thought on this. Is there a connection across to the work that's going on around the creative health agenda and the social prescribing and the...
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, shall we agree the recommendations on item 7 and move on to item 8. I think you're introducing this, please, Josh.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this paper presents the final draft of the West Yorkshire All Ages Careers Blueprint, which you'll find in the appendices. The blueprint is the region's model for an all-age careers offer that will become the entrance point to an integrated skills, employment and careers system rooted in the regional economy. And of course, the ambition is that this is owned by all partners and recognises the key contribution and role of partners across the ecosystem. Drivers for this blueprint include local, regional and national political ambitions, wider growth ambitions captured through the local growth plan, particularly those related to mass infrastructure projects such as mass transit. Key theme of the blueprint is the need for parallel systems, so both a universal and targeted offer to maximise the positive impact and the limited resources that we have at our disposal. As has been mentioned around this table, I think today, the current system is often too tied to age eligibility and therefore not universally accessible. And there is a desire to focus more on those kind of transition periods that are crucial to someone's kind of career and personal development and also their employment destination as well. The blueprint is fundamentally evidence-led through extensive primary and secondary research processes, particularly in highlighting existing excellent practice in the local and regional systems, and of course through extensive co-development and engagement with stakeholders involved in the careers system. The blueprint is implementation ready and gives a strategic framework for actions and interventions, and in terms of next steps, an implementation plan will be developed with local partners to put the framework into action. This will obviously strongly align to the collaborative principles highlighted in the skills system review. It will also provide the framework to deliver on the ambition to create a region of learning and creativity as an entrance point into the wider employment and skills system. I've already mentioned the ambition for this to be very firmly anchored in the emerging local growth plan and a firm feature of our conversations with national government. And I'd just like to highlight again that kind of strong focus on best practice as it happens locally and regionally as a key point of the blueprint. I'll pass back to you, Chair, and obviously welcome any comments. Particularly keen to hear from members interested in our next steps and those that are keen to be involved in those.
Great, thank you. Martin, please.
From a university perspective, I was keen to understand what role universities have had in the development of the plan and also in terms of the implementation, because clearly universities have got big career departments and a lot of expertise and resource in that area.
Sorry, who am I?
I'll happily take
Josh,
this.
please.
Yeah. So my understanding is, yes, universities have been, but very much part of that stakeholder group and very much consulted. And I think you're absolutely right to point out the massive role they have to play in implementation. Massive resource in terms of careers development for a large portion of people that live and choose to live here eventually. So absolutely see them as vital to that implementation.
And I guess if I can help with any of that, so again, I'm not aware of obviously the stakeholders that have been involved, but again, I'm sure Sue and I and the broader universities, we want to make sure that we are part of this. Absolutely. And you're talking to the right people as well. So if we can help, please let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Farah, please.
Yeah, I mean, this links in really neatly with the sort of promise, the West Yorkshire promise, doesn't it, really? And what you have is, those of us that remember being a teacher, the record of achievement, and in this sort of digital age, this is really that, isn't it? That sort of ability to have all your certification in one point, but then going further, an entitlement to careers advice that you could then pick up at whatever stage of life you're at. But I would like this to go a bit further and a promise of CPD as well throughout for the rest of your life as well, and that would really be revolutionary as well. So that sort of entitlement would just be fantastic, and it would sort of go all the way through. So it's, digitally you could do it all and keep it in one place, couldn't you, really?
Great. Josh, please. Yeah, I'm probably not in the business of making promises around this table, but I think it's very interesting the point you raise about CPD, and actually that's something that to harken back to an earlier paper that came across heavily in the West Yorkshire Promise consultations that we did with employers, that they see the value of that kind of development framework, not just for new staff and people that have just entered the labour market, but for for staff that they have on their books or have had in their books for some time, as a way of kind of developing them, potentially thinking about career retraining that might come with some of our mass infrastructure projects or a move towards a green economy. Employers are identifying that kind of framework as something that could be really useful in helping them do that. So while I cannot commit to any promises around the table, I think that is definitely something we have in mind.
Thank you. I've got Sue and then Sarah. So Sue, please.
Thank you. So yes, I really welcome this. It's been a very long-term ambition of the skills committee, panel, etc. for a very long time. It's really good to see it coming to fruition. Particularly pleased to see future goals are still an integral part of that. So yeah, well done. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, we endorse in Coldsdale this policy, for policy development for an all-age careers blueprint. Just out of interest, is there adult apprenticeships? Does that sort of like come on the horizon? We're just talking about retraining and stuff, because actually that can be quite a, it's sort of you go to apprenticeship events and it's all about young people, but actually that model could actually work quite well for, you mentioned, new careers, second careers, all of that sort of stuff. Lots of people, I can't count the number of careers I've had, but yeah, so just sort of, could that come into the framework at all?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. This is an all-age careers ambition. So absolutely, I see that as a fundamental part of it. Definitely.
Great, thank you. I'll have to ferret around in my mum's attic, see if I've still got my National Record of Achievement file. Yes. See, there's something there. Great. Okay. Somebody else want to come in on this item, please? Okay, I'm going to turn to the recommendations then, and turn to recommendations. Take it everybody is happy with those. That's great. We've got 4 more items on for information only. What I'm going to suggest is we've got just a little bit of time left. If anybody, I'll go through them one by one. If anybody's got any wanting to do some following, if anybody's got any particular questions on them that we might want to pick up here, then obviously can pick those up before we close the meeting. So the first one of those is the item 9, which is the access to markets and the trade mission. If anybody's got any questions on that paper.
Just to say that would happen in the future.
Sarah, please.
Didn't put the mic on for that.
Just that while there are some outcomes incorporated in this report, it might be helpful to pull out outputs and outcomes in future reporting, just to be sort of clear on the impact that might be made.
Thank you. Are there any comments on item 10, please, the early years education paper? Okay. Item 11 is an update on the budget. Okay, and then the last one, Sarah.
Yes. On item 10, will there be associated capital and revenue costs in the development of alternative early years education models? It's not clear where this investment will come from.
Yeah.
Shall.
Yes, it's possibly a bit early for that question. So this is a think piece coming here for your comments and steering awareness, and we're certainly not at kind of design or costing stage. And be keen to there's a long way to go.
Barney, please.
But if we're going on it, we're going. Just to make people aware that one of the FSB's ongoing policy arts of government is for nurseries and other childcare providers to be exempt from business rates. And I think that's quite an important thing. And I think it's just worth people being aware of that. And if anyone wants to support that sort of call to government, it might be useful.
We are promised business rates reform coming up to keep people excited for future budgets of this government. So that might be, I'm sure that's something that is something that's been looked at. Okay, so that was item 10. Item 11, which was a budget. No, and then the last one was item 12, which is innovative entrepreneurs, and this will certainly come back for a future discussion in future. But is there anything anybody wants to pick up now? Sarah, please, and then Barney.
Yes, very quickly. It'd be good to see similar updates on other elements of delivery. For example, the startup program. So it is good to see these things. And I think just to care that enthusiasm for this project doesn't tip into funding for the next round of delivery before it fits with wider business support review and available resources clarified. So just a thank you though.
Thank you. And Barney, please.
And I just wanted to just say that it'd be good if this work, and it probably already is, could also be picked up by those officers looking at the investment strategy, because I think there's maybe some lessons around investment readiness for smaller businesses here.
Sue, please.
Thank you. And whilst also declaring that we're involved as a delivery partner in this programme, I just wanted to say the experience of it has been fantastic. It's a really strong partnership working with Martin's team and others around this table, and we'd really love to involve more members of this group in coming along. And Mandy Rudyard came along last week to a celebration event we had with some of the first cohorts of entrepreneurs. They're really dedicated and creative people. We've really got the diversity woven all the way through the programme, and any opportunity if people want to get involved to come and see them in action and pitch days and things like that. If we can create ways to do that, it will really allow people to see the wider power and benefit of this programme.
Oh, great.
Just to add to that, I need to add to that, I think. Thank you, Sue. The actual pitch, the showcase event we had last week was actually really great, really well attended. So probably 70 plus people there, and there's a real energy in the room. Speaking to some of the entrepreneurs we've been working with is quite inspirational, actually, in terms of what they're doing and how they've pivoted some of their technology into things that really do make a difference to people's lives and around addressing inequality. So it's really great to see. But I also, the point I really wanted to make was there's real energy from a lot of partners to do more actually in that space. So I spoke to quite a number of people who just attended because they wanted to know more, not because they're entrepreneurs, but because they work for other organisations that are keen to get involved. So that was really the point I just wanted to add to Sue.
Sorry, I forgot to mention, the other link forward on this one is that some of those individuals will make perfect case studies for Innovation Festival Week in March. So hopefully by then, if they're all advanced with their proof of concept and business ideas, etc., we'll be able to really put them on show to the rest of the region and the world, I suppose.
Great, thank you, Sue. I've got Lee, and then do you want to come in, Martin? Come on, Lee.
I just wanted to chime in on the support for this. It's dovetailed really well with our business growth service, and I know that some of the businesses that have come through this are now on our programme as well. So it's been really, really good.
Great, thank you. Martin, please.
Access to finance and investment, which is mentioned in the LGP draft. And as this startup program, there is a particular problem with startup funding in the UK and what's suitable for it. The current government scheme for startup loans isn't suitable. It's personal loans that it gives out, not business loans. So the impact of that, it means that if you're a young person looking at starting up a business, then you can have a business or a house, but you can't have both because it's affected from it. It also means that you're liable for that loan for the entirety. So it's in effect is 100% guarantee. But I'm just a bit worried in some of the narrative that we identify the lack of funding as the problem, and the answer is to put more money into things. It's actually just a different approach to risk, and it's accessing that. In the LGP, it mentions about there only being 29, I believe it is, venture capital companies in West Yorkshire, and there's 33 in the West Midlands. Well, believe it, if there was enough deals to be done here, there'd be more, and they would set up tomorrow to do them. So it's around how we get those businesses active and at the level using the programmes that have just been mentioned here today, and attractive to investors. And then if we're looking at public money, it's how we offset the risk that the private sector is quite prepared to take. And if we can offset some of that risk away from them and from the individuals, we'll see more entrepreneurs and more entrepreneurial businesses coming through.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on this item? Like I say, this is one that will definitely come back to a future committee meeting. I think we've got some pointers around where we could focus that discussion presentation when it comes. Okay, if nobody else will come in, I'll thank everybody for coming and close the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Oh, sorry, Imran.
I just want to raise the issue around alternate members, and if we have the scope to include alternate members. I'm just looking at the date of the next meeting, for example. It's the 27th of March. That's kind of towards the end of Ramadan, possibly Eid. So if Eid is on that day, I wouldn't be able to attend, but if it wasn't, it's definitely Ramadan, and the fast breaks around about 4 o'clock, so I won't get home in time, so I may not be able to come to it. But I want to make sure we've got representation here.
Okay, thank you. Well, we did agree alternate members, didn't we?
Yeah, we said subs subs could attend.
Yes, yeah.
But we can confirm and send something out if you think that's helpful.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, everybody.